Hey everybody, welcome back. We're going to go through Friday Facts 375, which is on quality. When I first saw this title, I thought we were going to talk about the quality of the expansion, perhaps, but that is not what it is. So let's get into it. The first up is, what is quality? Quality is a new characteristic that all items and structures have going forward for the expansion only that give health bonuses to structures and also building specific bonuses for certain buildings and armor and stuff like that. So for example, modules of higher quality get bigger bonuses, equipment grids are bigger in higher quality armor and spidertrons. There are higher quality ammo does more damage, higher quality turbines give more power. Interestingly, belts do not have any difference in speed because of quality, and there are other structures that are unaffected as well. However, you still will want to make higher quality belts in certain circumstances because they are used as intermediate items. So overall, quality introduces a very dramatic potential for huge productivity boosts, huge speed boosts, and all the way around just a whole lot of deeper gameplay and base planning and structure and so on. All right, so next we're going to talk about how do we get higher quality items. So it starts with a new module called the quality module, which it does itself have quality levels, and there are 3 tiers. So we're going to end up saying things like a legendary quality tier 3 quality module. That's going to happen, and it's going to be on the forums and Reddit, and it's going to be awesome, and it's probably going to be a meme. Quality modules add a chance to get a higher level of quality than what your assembler is creating. So if you have an assembler that's creating normal quality items, and it is specifiable, which allows you to choose what you want to manufacture, assuming that you have the requisite quality input materials, or you can use quality modules to try to bump up the output quality, and there's a chance to do it. So for example, the tier 1 quality module gives a 1% chance to get the next level quality, and I think a 0.1% chance to get 2 levels higher. So in this way, you can there's a random component. And so to review what we just said, there are 2 ways to get a higher quality item. Either you build it just as an output and say, I want the higher quality item, in which case you have to have the higher quality inputs, or use a quality module to kind of gamble that you get a higher quality output. And I don't know if it says in this Friday Facts, but I believe there's probably going to be a power and a speed hit for the quality boost percentage, which is interesting. And I kind of said it there, but just to say it explicitly again, you can, with quality modules, skip more than 1 level of quality. So you could have a tier 1 quality assembler, or rather an assembler crafting tier 1 items, and 0.1% of the time with one tier 1 quality module, I think you'll get a tier 3 quality item. Quality modules cannot be inserted into beacons, and that's very similar to productivity modules, right? That would be kind of OP if you could do that, and a little bit unreasonable. And higher quality speed modules have been nerfed. So while they will have an increase to the amount of speed that they get for higher quality speed modules, you will also have a trade-off that you'll need to spend more power. And from what I understand from this blog post, there are certain circumstances where you want to favor the massive speed boost, and there are certain circumstances where you want to favor the more efficient, lower quality speed modules. So far we've talked about the concept of quality being added to the game and quality modules, but if you're thinking this through, you probably have realized that you're going to have a lot of items that you don't have anything to do with. Because, so for instance, if you are pumping out quality 2 ammo in general at some stage in your save, you're probably not going to want the tier 1 stuff, but that is by and large what you're going to get. So this is where the recycler comes in. With all of these undesirable items that are of lower quality that you don't want to just stuff them in boxes like Troopin's pistols of shame that the blog post refers to. And so the recycler can turn items back into their constituent components at, I believe it's a 75% loss rate, or an efficiency of 25%, in other words. And that is buffable with higher quality recyclers, and I think productivity modules, ? I'm not positive on that. I actually should probably reread there, but it is buffable. I don't know if it can ever get to 100%. I'm guessing that there are going to be mods that are going to make the infinite loop possible. It's not possible in vanilla, in the vanilla expansion, but I'm going to bet, just like, you know, because of mods like Warp Torio and stuff like that, there's probably going to be mods where a part of the gameplay loop is to exceed infinity and almost kind of get into one of those like exponentially growing incremental games or something like that. Overall productivity will be capped at 300% for all assemblers and things like that, which is liftable by mod. So tiers of quality, the first couple are opened up by researching those tiers of quality modules, so just get for free. The next two I think come from quality modules, and I think the last two, those are separate research items. So you actually have to, almost kind of like the infinite mining research that you can do toward the end of the game. I believe that those have to be researched separately apart from any kind of modules, even once you have them all unlocked. So let's talk about some of the implications of this that the Factorio dev team is well aware of and documented in this Friday Facts. And then we'll get into some of my implications later on. So due to the fact that you're not going to have recyclers early on, there's going to be a stage where you have kind of a random assortment of normal and higher quality items, and that's going to be different from one playthrough to the next. So there's a really big randomness element that's being introduced into this game, which is very interesting because I think that Factorio is very deterministic in almost all ways except probably biters, you know, like biter expansion, stuff like that. It is otherwise very deterministic today, and this is going to change that massively. This is going to change speed runs and other stuff. We'll get into that in a bit. If you try to get super duper high quality items early on, even it sounds like in the mid game, if you push too hard on that, you're going to fall into a trap where you run out of resources and you have nothing to show for it and you're stuck. And ostensibly you're going to have to either go fight some biters to free up resources, or you're going to have to do something else to mitigate that issue. So you don't want to just sprint for the finish line with quality. Since the expansion is the space age, right, there's an interplanetary logistics component a la space exploration with fewer planets, although we'll see what mods do with that. But anyway, interplanetary logistics has interactions with quality in that initially you probably want to build stuff on site when you're dealing with lower quality items, meaning if you land on another planet, like in space exploration, a lot of the time it's just going to be more efficient to make whatever items you need there on the spot. However, later on, the game changes where it becomes prudent to centralize your production of higher quality items and then ship them to different places as needed. Where space is limited, like on the space platform, which we haven't really discussed yet on this channel because I still haven't done my Factorio expansion video. I'm kind of going through the Friday Facts now, but I still haven't done that video on like the announcement. I never got around to that. The space platform, on that platform you have limited real estate. It's kind of like in space exploration, the novice platform, although it sounds like it's way more expensive to expand if you can past a certain point at all. And so higher quality items there give you a ton more bang for your buck. Obviously, you know, you can get more functionality out of the same space if you have modules that have higher efficiency and effectiveness and so on, you know, higher range turrets, more damaging ammo to shoot down obstacles, that sort of thing. And we just kind of touched on this, but in the beginning, there is this randomness factor, and there's kind of a gambling aspect that you can take on. You can risk lower quality items to try to crank out a better one and unlock something earlier than you normally would that allows you to, I don't know, clear biter bases that much faster if you get it, say like a higher quality weapon, that sort of thing. And if you fail the roll, then, and you end up with lower quality stuff, then you just effectively wasted a bunch of resources, because early on you're at 25% efficiency on the recyclers, which is pretty awful. So let's talk a bit about the actual technical side of this, the engine support, the code implications. So this feature, according to Coverex, was actually built for 1.0, which is interesting because I think 1.1 is what's live right now, which means that, so 1.0 had this code basically disabled, but the code was written for 1.0. And then when 1.1 was written, this code for quality needed to be kept in sync with that, needed to account for all the changes that occurred in 1.1, and that was apparently a ton of work. It must have sucked a lot. Those of us who know what merge conflicts are, apparently there were a ton of them, and it was very painful. And those of us who are allergic to UI work also know that there are a lot of different places where the UI needs to be modified to support these quality changes. And since they were built for 1.0, all of those needed to also have conflicts resolved. And just to touch on the final point of this Friday Facts, this is only in the expansion. The code will technically be in the non-expansion version of Factorio. However, you'll only ever have access to normal quality, and you won't have any quality modules or anything like that. So, and that's fair. I mean, this is a ton of work. This is a very high quality game and product. So I think it's awesome that they're doing that. I'm glad that it's behind the expansion, and we're already getting a lot for free this early on. We know that we're getting a lot for free. So I'm glad to see that. So now let's get into my thoughts about quality, right? So the first thing I kind of mentioned before, there are going to be some very odd series of words that people are going to find themselves saying on the forums and videos, playthroughs, stuff like that. If you consider that quality modules themselves have both a quality factor and a tier, the modules are tier 1, 2, or 3, you're going to say things like quality 5, tier 3 quality module, or epic quality tier 3 quality module, and it's gonna get annoying. There's probably gonna be shorthand for that or something. I'll be very curious to see. I can't wait to hear Troopin's first video that touches on quality modules and his take on it. So one of the biggest implications next up to me is speed runs. So as I said before, Factorio is very deterministic today, with the exception, I think, of biters, and even they can be somewhat predictable because of pollution patterns and how you build your base and lay it out, and seeds. Quality is a huge departure from that, since every production of an item is going to be a random roll once you have a quality module in a given assembler that could give you something better, that could potentially seriously alter your ability to go faster or slower through a playthrough. It's really going to be a massive, massive change. And I think it's going to almost kind of take Factorio in a somewhat more roguelite direction, or roguelike direction. And I actually would be curious to see if there are mods that really flesh that idea out even more and make Factorio less about 200-hour, 300-hour saves and more about some sort of random element in conjunction with quality that builds from the beginning. I think Warped Oreo is like that, but I'm just kind of making stuff up there potentially because I've never played it and I don't know anything about it. I'm just going off of what I thought I read on like Reddit. And then the last thing I want to talk about is what the performance implications of this are. Now, some of this is going to be speculation, but I'm fairly confident in a good amount of it. I can guarantee you that this is going to make things cost more memory, which at first glance, hey, memory's cheap, right? Everybody's got 16 gigs, it seems, these days, except Factorio is so heavily optimized that once you get to certain CPU speeds, you start to bottleneck on how fast the contents of memory can be transferred from RAM to the CPU cache and the CPU. And this is going to significantly impact the amount of data that needs to be stored on belts. And the reason I say that is two or threefold. First of all, the ideal state for a belt in Factorio today, from my last reading of this a year or two ago, is either completely full of the same item or completely empty. And the reason for that is because belts basically just track where they start and where they end, and they track the gaps rather than the actual exact item. So if you have a belt that is 4 tiles long and each tile can hold 4 items per lane, and you know that the belt is full, you can represent that in memory with the number 16 for each lane and whatever the item ID is, and you're done. If there's a gap in it, they start to track those gaps and sort of what is at the next place on the belt, which is extremely efficient for bases that have well-saturated belts. Splitters have unfortunate interactions with this today and have implications for mega base planning and such. But that memory increase will definitely, in my opinion, I'm going to hedge my bet now. I think it's going to have a significant performance impact for mega bases that are not optimized to keep long belts homogeneous. Meaning that if you have a belt that's got a mix of quality coming out and you don't quickly, with either direct insertion, meaning no belts, inserters coming right out of the assembler, filter inserters, or very short belts that filter through splitters and go and put things in a box. If you don't do something like that, you're going to end up with big belts full of mixed items. And in a mega base, that's going to be very unfortunate. It's going to be another layer that you have to account for. And then just in general, for this Friday Facts, I am beyond excited again. Like this and the bots thing from last week is so exciting to me. This is huge. It's going to change the entire game. I don't know how pumped up I am about seeing the little quality icons on my belts all the time. For some reason, it seems weird. I'm guessing I'll get used to it. Right now, it seems weird to see those little 2 and 3 and 4 dots going along. They kind of look like Braille, and it's just very distracting, or dice or something like that. I think in conjunction with all the other things that space exploration is going to add, the replayability is just going to be off the charts with quality. From one run to the next, now you have options about how you scale, whether you scale horizontally or vertically, whether you pursue higher quality items first or sooner or later. I think it's going to do an amazing thing for the game and really open it up more than it already is. And I think it's going to make us excited for the next generation of CPUs that are probably going to drop before Factorio does at this point. So anyway, there's my thoughts on today's Friday Facts. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you found it informative or enjoyed watching, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Any of those things mean a lot to me and they help the channel a lot. You can also join our Discord. There's a link in the description. And we'll see you next Friday or on the next long play if you're tuning in for those. Have a good day, everybody. Take care. Bye.